Hello, my faithful students. How are we doing today?
Morning, sir. I am tired. How are you?
Well, actually, I'm a little sniffly today, so you know, but always great to do some DDM on a Saturday morning, right?
Sir, you were frolicking in the rain? Were you frolicking in the rain?
I try not to. All right, so good to see other persons. Um, let's see. We should not have a very long class today. Last week was a little intense, though many persons
A
didn't come.
little, sir.
Yeah, just a little. It was just a little intense. This week will not be as intense. We're just going to do some minor stuff this week. Um, I hope everyone is doing okay with their portfolio assignment. So that is due when did we say? We said the 31st, right? So I hope that is going well for everybody. Let's see. You're supposed to submit your wireframe. That's the layout of what your sheet will be like. And then you're supposed to submit the actual design, right? So looking forward to that. So you have about a week or so to complete that portfolio assignment. So if anyone has any questions about it, we have today's class that we can use to we can discuss anything you want to on that. This week, however, we're going to turn our attention to modeling, right? And this is in preparation for upcoming the next frontier, the next exercise that we have to tackle, right? But before we go into that, we're going to just kind of stretch our limbs a bit in some 3D modeling. You guys technically did 3D modeling already for your exercise 5, so you have an idea with SketchUp. I saw some comments from different persons saying that they're glad to get a chance to use SketchUp, and they realize how quick and easy it is. So that is great. So we're going to dive a little bit deeper into SketchUp for this class, right? All right. All right, Harrison, I got your message. Right. So we're going to dive a little bit deeper into SketchUp. And actually, it is out of this class that a lot of this module, rather, a lot of persons start to, develop a relationship with SketchUp. Because it's really easy to jump into. But I've seen already where students, even in 4th year, that use SketchUp, they don't end up using one of the primary, I would say, one of the fundamental advantages of using SketchUp, right? And that is for 3D sketching. So I want to spend some time to let you guys see the benefits of 3D sketching for this class, right? So everyone should have their SketchUp installed, right? Let's see. Let's go to millimeters. Am I right? Darian, you have your SketchUp installed? Not hearing anything from Darian? What about Antonio? Oh, yes, Darian, I see
Yes,
your
sir.
message. All right, great. Now, SketchUp is something that you probably will have installed for the rest of your life. So, as a matter of fact, well, as you guys know, I am now part-time at UTech, right? So even the firm that I'm working with now, they also use SketchUp, right? Pretty much any firm that you go into, there's a high possibility you'll end up using SketchUp. What I want you guys to remember is the benefit of using SketchUp, right? Because it's very easy to use SketchUp in the wrong way, right? And I'm going to show you what you call now. You call the best practice of when do you really want to depend on SketchUp. Some persons who use more advanced programs, maybe like Blender or Cinema 4D, they tend to probably look down on SketchUp and say, ha, SketchUp is for plebs. 1 second. Right. So they tend to look down on SketchUp and say SketchUp is for plebs or for beginners. But guess what? There is something that SketchUp can do that most of the other advanced programs out there can't. So whenever you use it in that bracket, you know, that area that SketchUp shines in, you are an unstoppable force. But when you try to use SketchUp in other areas that it really doesn't work in, that's when you're going to start meeting up on the limits of SketchUp. All right. Now, especially for architecture school, SketchUp is going to be, I almost say, a requirement because of, you know, where SketchUp falls in the bracket of creating content. So I wanted to just touch a little bit on what is 3D modeling, right? We did touch on this a little bit, and then we jumped right into doing some modeling with SketchUp. But I want to just give you a little taste of the broad scope of what modeling is, right? So it's the process of creating a 3D representation of any surface or object by manipulating polygons, edges, and vertices in a 3D space. So if you remember when we saw those introductory videos on SketchUp and we talked about the X and the Y and the Z axis, and we had a little activity where some of you guys created a letter. You created a letter in 2D, and then you were able to now turn that letter in 3D and draw on the Z axis, right? Now, there is different techniques to modeling, right? And that's what I want to show you guys. There is solid surface modeling. There is solid modeling, surface modeling, digital sculpting. Hold on a second. Oh. Right. So there is box modeling, polygonal modeling, subdivision modeling, spline modeling, digital sculpting, 3D scanning, procedural modeling. Now, all of these are 3D in the sense that there's a z-axis and you're creating a 3D shape. But how you create the 3D shape is what is a little different. So for example, box modeling is one of the popular types of modeling that is done. And does anybody recognize a shape on this slide? Where did it come from? Anybody recognize this here? Nobody? Nobody? Shakia?
Yes,
Ah, you see, I get your name right now, don't? Anyway, do you recognize?
You're speaking about the Lego block.
Exactly.
Oh,
that was actually your exercise 4, right? So I wanted to show you that because what you actually were doing in SketchUp is box modeling. And it's not box modeling because it's the shape of a box usually, but the term comes from warping a shape into what you want it to be, right? So there are like different ways of doing box modeling, but SketchUp does it in a particular way that makes SketchUp a really unique program. Pretty much almost any 3D, well, most 3D programs can do box modeling. But for example, if you take up Revit or even AutoCAD, it doesn't really do box modeling so well, right? So this is now contour modeling, or some persons refer to it as polygonal modeling. It's a little bit different from box modeling. Box modeling is kind of like you have a shape and you warp it into the shape. So for example, like 90% of when you're doing box modeling, it usually starts with a simple shape, like a box, a sphere, something like that. So when you guys did the Lego block, if you notice, you know, most of you drew a square and you extruded it, and then you extruded the 4 parts on top and so forth and so forth. Contour modeling on the other hand is you're not warping a shape into a new shape, but instead what you're doing is you're actually drawing each polygon as you go along, right? So I actually carried this example to show you. This was something that I modeled probably back in 2010 maybe, or thereabouts, when I was doing practice, when I was practicing the modeling techniques. And let me see if I can find a picture for you here. Well, I'll see if I can find a photo, but all right. This was, anybody can tell me what kind of car this is? Really, nobody? What kind of car is it?
Is that Yaris that? Oh, is that all Yaris? I don't know.
Nope, it is definitely not a Yaris. Anybody else? There are no car fanatics in the house? No?
Say somebody in the comment section was saying Starlet.
Oh, right, yes. It is a Starlet. And to be exact, it's this is a GT Starlet. And to be exact, this was actually the car I used to drive in like 3rd and 4th year CSA, right? Usually in every class there's a few people that drive that have to do the midnight runs to get food and snacks, right? So I was usually a designated driver. Anyway, So the reason I bring this up is at the top here you can see what you refer to as blueprints, not to be confused with blueprints in the architectural industry, but in the modeling industry they just call it the same name, blueprints, which is kind of doing the same thing as the rear view, front view, side view. And these down here are reference images. So contour modeling, you need blueprints and reference images to create a 3D model, right? I'm gonna open this thing here. Then there we go. There we go. Right. Let's see if I can find some examples here for you. Start with 3. Okay, maybe it will open. This has been a while. Actually, this was from 2011, so it wasn't that long ago. Let's do this a shorter way. Come on. Sorry, the computer is just doing stuff. Okay. All right, let's see if it comes back up. There we go. Yeah, I don't think it's gonna find it. It's not. Okay, maybe. Yeah, well, okay. This is a long time file, so it's not exactly going to open like how it used to. But what you can see here is on each of these surfaces is the drawings of the model, right? And how contour modeling works is that each of these, you can see them polygons, is you draw them by extruding them into the shape that you want. So for example, if I wanted to draw an edge here based on the drawing there, which you can't necessarily see. Let me see if I can. Oh, great, it crashed. Okay, all right, well, so that's kind of like what contour modeling is. You can kind of see in the background, right. You can kind of see in the background where you see the reference model, and then you can see the 3D there being created. And this is next you have subdivision modeling. And what this is like when you draw something, you smooth it up. If you notice how this one has a lot of squares and this version here is smooth, right? So essentially what you do is think of like a piece of wood, and you use like a sander, and you sand down the corners of the wood so that it looks nice and smooth. It's kind of like that, but it's using an algorithm with your 3D model, right? All right. Next, you have spline modeling. So, for example, when you need to do these kind of interesting shapes here, which would be a little difficult to get with squares, you use splines, and this is very similar to using vectors, but it's vectors in 3D. So if you notice here on this image, you can kind of see these vector lines. That's right here. All right. All right. One sec. Right. And then there is digital sculpting, and that is just like, anybody here does sculpting with wood or clay? Anybody sculpting person? Nobody? But we do kind of understand how sculpting works. I figure like how most of we here maybe have an art background, right? What you say, Alexio? Do you you have an idea of what sculpting is?
I'm not. I mean, I'll try, but it's basically with. Do you mean like sculpting with software or just in general?
Just general, sculpting in general.
Well, I would take it as like the use of various materials like clay and to basically, I don't know, for lack of a better word, just sculpt. I would say like I'm not quite sure the properly explain it.
Right. So yeah. Or nobody watch Ghost, long time movie Ghost? Maybe that's too far back. Right. Anyway, but the idea is that it's just like clay. And just like how you can manipulate clay in real life, think of as you have a block of clay, but it's on the computer screen, and the way that you sculpt it is by using the mouse keyboard to do it. So for example, I think hold on, it doesn't start up yet. So some programs are able to do sculpting. So SketchUp cannot do that type of modeling, which is 3D sculpting. But maybe a program like anybody ever heard of Mudbox? No, probably not. That would mainly be using more of an art environment. But essentially what you do is, if you have like a shape like this, which is a sphere, and you can see the sphere is, please don't crash. Right, the square is made up of like these points, right? So they're made up of vertices, and they're made up of polygons. And essentially what you have is, for sculpting, you are able to do things like just push and pull and come on. The recording is making this kind of slow, but you get the idea. And you're able to just kind of warp it into the shape that you want. And this is what sculpting is, right? You just kind of warp it into the shape that you want. Now, this is kind of a horrible shape, but you get the idea. If you're able to manipulate this good enough, you're able to do that. So that is sculpting. and then you have procedural modeling. Now, this is the one that we are familiar with, right? And I don't even have to show you an example of this. Well, at least not yet. But for example, when you use programs like Revit or AutoCAD or ArchiCAD, those programs have built-in built-in tools in them that allow you to if you want to draw a door or a wall, you just pick door and then you put in the parameters for a door, you pick wall and put in the parameters for a wall, right? So that is what procedural modeling is. Right. So for example, a program that can do procedural modeling will have like a tool for stairs, right? There. Let's go with a straight stairs. There we go. And we have a stairs. Or a U-shaped stairs. So that is what procedural modeling is, because now you're able to insert values to change like the amount of risers and that kind of stuff. So architectural programs are like procedural masters, right? Because they have, choose the height of the door, the width of the windowsill, all of these things are built into the program, right? So the other type of modeling we have is 3D scanning. And 3D scanning is used, for example, as a matter of fact, in fourth year now, we are actually doing a 3D scan of a building, right? But 3D scanning has evolved over the years to scan more than just buildings. So for example, this can't fit on this page here. Try and get this. There we go. Right. So for example, you can 3D scan humans, and that has been around from video game days, right? Also, sophisticated programs now are able to 3D scan. If I can show you an example of this, you can 3D scan animated models as well. So this program is so hard to manipulate. There we go. So this is a 3D scan of a person, just like what you saw before, but the difference is that it's not a stationary 3D scan. So you can have like the person walking. Right? Can you guys see that? You guys seeing the screen okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Right.
sir.
So this is the same technology. And now instead of 3D scanning somebody as like a statue, right? And you can get all of the curves. And so it's not just about boxes and window walls and those things anymore. It has evolved to scanning any intricate shapes in the human body, which is why I chose to use this example here. This is a company that's 3D scans people, right? So of all of these types of modeling, box modeling, polygonal modeling, and so forth, the one that we're going to be focusing on is going to be box modeling, right? That is the one that SketchUp is able to do. And as you probably figured out, SketchUp isn't able to do all of these other forms of modeling. So the more complex a modeling program is, the more it's able to do all of these. So the program that I was using just now, let's see if I can bring it up for you. Right. So this was the completed model of that starlet. There we go. And everything was modeled down to the bolts, there, and the disc rotor and the disc pad. Well, inside wasn't modeled, but these areas here, right? And a program like 3D Max has the ability to do box modeling like SketchUp, but it can also do contour modeling. It can do spline modeling. It can't do 3D scanning, though. You would need another software to do that, right? So you, depending on the type of modeling that you're doing, you would use different softwares. Now, with box modeling, in architecture, you're primarily going to be doing box modeling and you're going to be doing procedural modeling, right? So remember, procedural modeling, that's like AutoCAD, ArchiCAD, that kind of stuff, where you have parameters that you're able to edit, height of door and that kind of stuff. And box modeling is when you model from simple shapes. So like what we did with the Lego block, and usually a lot of items in architecture or even furniture design, you can do with box modeling, you know, because most of those are what you call hard surface. However, when you get to organic shapes like people and monsters and those kind of things, like what you see in the movies, you're gonna need these other more complex ways of modeling, right? Which in architecture we don't necessarily do that, but some of you may have, like I see a lot of students that have like an interest in sculpture or a very interesting facade or an element on the facade that is very organic, and the box modeling is not able to do that. So this is why I wanted to tell you about SketchUp, because SketchUp is great at box modeling, but what happens is that you might come across a case when you want to model something organic, and because you know SketchUp, and SketchUp is so great, you're kind of trying to use SketchUp to get you that, and you're going to have a much harder time. All right. Just like if you're trying to use SketchUp to do procedural modeling, it's not going to be able to do that, right? And I can give you an example here. So for example, if I have a SketchUp model, so come on. It's not going to open, is it? Oh, yes, good. Right. So if I have a SketchUp model, for example, this is a SketchUp model here, but this is not a procedural model. So what do I mean by that? If I wanted to change the height of this door, there's no parameters for me to do that. I have to manually go into the door and, you know, select the surface and use like push pull to make the door thicker or thinner, right? So there are no like parameters for me to just change all doors. So this is why you need this type of modeling here. Sometimes I refer to it as parametric modeling, parametric or procedural. It simply means that it's driven by values. So you insert height of door, the door changes. So from what you can see there, SketchUp is all box modeling. So now let's talk a little bit about box modeling. All right. Now, what we're going to be doing is we are going to be using SketchUp today, and we are going to be creating some concepts using box modeling. Now, Where is it? Okay, here we go. So you remember when we did this sketch? This was a couple classes ago. Who was it that did this sketch again? I can't remember.
Oh, that was me too.
Right. Now, this is, and I want you guys to hear me carefully. Where SketchUp shines, where you should use SketchUp, is when it comes to concept development. If you remember when we did this sketch, we did this with a vector program. So we were able to use like some lines and stuff in Illustrator to kind of sketch out what we saw here. But with SketchUp, you can sketch what you see here in 3D. And that makes a world of a difference because, for example, a sketch is a flat thing. Like, what is going on behind this building or what is going on the top of this building? We don't know because it's a sketch. So just replicating the sketch as a 2D sketch, you still have those unknowns. Now, where SketchUp shines is that you can use SketchUp to conceptualize something, and then you can conceptualize something as a sketch, and then you can develop on it in 3D in areas where the sketch wouldn't help you to develop it. So, for example, let's say that I had this model here, and it's just an idea, right? Maybe it's for, I don't know, a studio project, and I just had this nice idea and I sketch it out on a piece of paper, you know, just simply like this. And I said to myself, yeah, I think this could be an awesome thing. But then there are more things this needs to be developed a bit more. You need to know what the elevations look like. You need to have an idea of what the measurements are and all of that. Now, in the past, what we used to do now is maybe just sketch out an elevation, sketch out different views. But when you use SketchUp, what you're able to do is extend this concept sketch that you have made. I'll give you an idea of that. So if this was something that you sketched and you wanted to develop on this concept, you could just, by using your own, like, say, imagination. Let me get my tools here, and where is the rest of my tools? Oh, here, right. So you could use SketchUp and just, I don't know, maybe it's something like this. Then there's a push-pull that goes up like that. That's it, maybe something like that. Then maybe there's, you know, I don't know what this element in the back looks like, but it's something like this. And then maybe this is another push-pull like that. Maybe it goes all the way up to there. And then this cuts about halfway in the middle. Maybe like that. Oops, extended it too much there, but that's okay. Now that's the beauty of it, because you're just sketching, so even if you make a mistake, that's fine. You know, and you're basically recreating this that you see here. You say, okay, maybe click on this line here and move this in, maybe like that. Or maybe click on this line here and move this out like that. And there you go. So with SketchUp, I'm able to create this in a matter of seconds, right? And when you create it, then you can start to answer things that your sketch didn't allow you to answer. For example, you know, what is the scale of this building? That's probably the first step. Because when you sketch this, maybe you were just like, you know, kind of working off emotions or a kind of feel that you had. But now you've kind of sketched it out in SketchUp, you can start to think, okay, this is the height of a person, so this building is way too small. So then you can start to add some more realistic things to it. So maybe you say, okay, so maybe this building would definitely be bigger. There we go. Maybe it would be like about that. Definitely maybe the height would be a bit taller. So maybe like that. And then that would make my overall height need to be a little bit higher. Right, so I'm going to move this up. So right away, SketchUp allows you to like start. So then you say, oh, so this is my right scale. Then maybe there are other questions like what happens behind this area? Well, now you can turn it around and then you can start to develop on things that your sketch didn't show you. So, you know, maybe there's some kind of recessed part there, and maybe there's a recessed part at the front as well. I don't know. So maybe there's a recessed like here. So all of these things now are things you can start to do and build on top of the original sketch. All right, that's the point that I want to get to you. And this is where SketchUp shines. Its ability to convert this sketch in a matter of seconds in an object that you can explore on. All right. So do you guys understand this point that I'm getting across? Guys?
Yes, sir. I understand.
All right, good. Now, where SketchUp, where you will start running into challenges with SketchUp is when you try to go like really detailed. So for example, the models that I showed you earlier, like let's say this car model. Come on. Right, so let's say like this car model that I showed you earlier. And I'm going to put this into clay mode so you can see it a little bit clearer. Now, you can see the amount of detail that goes into creating this car model, right? And then you can see how smooth everything is, down to the individual veins of the intercooler and things like that. This would be way more difficult to achieve in SketchUp with all of these smoothing capabilities, so that the model doesn't seem like a hard block of, I don't know, like a Lego thing. It looks more realistic, and hence when you use those more complex programs, this is why you're able to get more come on, let me just show you some pictures. There you go. Come on. There we go. Right. So you're able to get more realistic because most of the edges and these areas here, you can get going and make it a little bit more organic, more smooth. Right? So this would be much harder to achieve now, and that is where I want to tell you that for most of what you do in architecture, this is so important. Like the ability for you to come up with an idea and then expand on it really quickly. This is where SketchUp shines. Usually, once you get to a certain point, you would want to switch from a box modeling program to a parametric modeling program. Remember, parametric is very similar to procedural. So when you switch to a parametric program, then you're able to do things like put in the amount of doors and do much more detailed architectural work, right? So some persons might want to carry SketchUp all the way to the end, which you can do, by drawing all the doors and windows and stuff like that. But things get much more difficult when you try to use SketchUp to do that. On the other hand, there are some people who maybe want to do concept design and they want to use like Revit or ArchiCAD to do that. They can, but they're just not as quick as SketchUp. The ability for me to do this task that I just showed you a while ago, hands down, is way easier on a program like SketchUp. All right. Okay, guys. So that was a quick little introduction. Now, what we're going to be doing for this class is we're going to be using SketchUp and we're going to be learning a little bit more of what SketchUp can do. All right. As usual, what time is it? Well, we did start a little late today, and the class is not going to be that long. So I'm just going to jump right into it. Okay, guys? Or do you guys need a break?
You can go ahead, sir.
All
You can
right,
continue,
because-
sir.
All right, cool. So we can be not here more than we need to. All right. Okay, a bit here. I'm going to pause this.